Guild Wars Sea of Sorrows. Chapter 15. Although the sailors on the Salma's Grace did not recognize the ship with scarlet sails, the men and women aboard the Pride certainly did. I say spun the tiller, boldly calling out commands to the sailors aboard the pinnace. With their captain and first mate on the deck of the Salma's Grace, the crew of the Pride could have fallen to pandemonium had Isay not taken a firm hand. Although they had little reason to listen to her, Isay was used to command. Her orders were sharp with the ring of authority, and with Virad at her side to assist, the well-trained sailors of the Pride were quickly responding. Kobaya could see his distant crew shouting and racing along the deck. As he watched, the pinnace adjusted her sails and turned her broadside away from the crippled Creadan vessel, pointing her guns toward the newcomer. Would that the Salma's Grace could do the same? Captain Moran! When the Creadan captain stared at him in befuddlement, Kobaya jerked the man by the shoulders and spun him toward the west. Do you see that ship? Aye. Moran looked hopeful. Bad luck for you, pirate. If that's a Creadan vessel, once they've freed us, King Bade will hang you on the gallows in Divinity's reach. I've been hanged before, Kobaya said offhandedly. It didn't take. Pointing at the incoming vessel, Kobaya traced the shape of its odd sails in the air. Ever seen a Creadan ship with sails like that, Captain Moran? Knowing the man's answer before he spoke, Kobaya pressed on. I'll bet all the platinum in your hold that you haven't not unless you've sailed beyond the Orion Vale. It's a dead ship, Cap'n, and she's called the Harbinger. I saw her strike Port Stalwart as part of an armada crewed by walking corpses. They left Stalwart in wreckage, and now they've come after us. It's your bad luck they caught up to us right now. Or maybe good luck. If that ship found yours alone at sea, I assure you, they'd make no promise to spare your crew. Dead ship? Moran squinted. Suddenly sober, he stiffened in fear. By the 6 gods. If that's true, they'll sink us both, pirate. Kobaya. And raise our flesh as rotting husks once we've been drowned. That's no good for me, Moran, and I'm betting it's not your favorite idea either. Kobaya released the man's jacket, and Moran stumbled backward. He was caught by a sturdy paw. Blood matted the fur at Fasher's wrists as the black-furred char helped the captain to stand. The grizzled captain flinched as he realized he was leaning against a char. But to his credit, Moran said nothing. He nodded a simple thank you and turned his attention back to the dead ship. Damn it, we have to go back. Henst cursed, every muscle taut as he watched the Pride readying to engage the Harbinger. Isay's on that ship. Kobaya knew exactly how the Ascalonian felt. But he didn't have the luxury of panic. Instead, he kept the Creadan captain's attention and kept his voice even and firm. We have to work together, Captain Moran. The Pride can't handle that vessel alone, and in these narrow corridors, we can't outrun her. That's why we attacked your ship among these rocks. No matter where we are, son, we can't defeat it. Moran's voice shook despite the gruff old man's militant bearing. I'm a servant of the church and a captain of the Creadan Navy. I have faith in the gods. He made the sign of Duena in the air. But that ship's anathema to all things sacred. It can't be defeated and it can't be destroyed. Nobody's ever beaten one. There's only one sane thing we can do. Turn the Grace while that ship's fighting them and leave the Pride to die. I don't like leaving men and women to their deaths, but there's no other choice. Their sacrifice will be remembered in the halls of the Zhaishen. Kobaya's face darkened. Leave my crew behind? Not today, not tomorrow, and damn well not ever. We're going to fight, Captain Moran, and we're going to win. You've got to believe me. Moran met his eye dubiously, and Kobaya lowered his voice. That pinnace is our home. It's all we've got. The Pride's not defenseless. Either it's got an astonishingly powerful elementalist, a mesmer with a brain the size of Mount Maelstrom, and the finest pilot on this whole shade-spawned sea. More than that, it's got me. Kobaya let go of the Cryadan and turned to point at the 4 char. Sikox, check below decks and make sure this crate is still seaworthy. Fasher, ready the cannons and deck guns and give me a full accounting of our firepower. We're fighting? Sikox's 4 ears shot up in delight and horror. Fasher looked impressed as well. Behind them, old Grist was holding up the still woozy awesome. All 4 of the char stared at Kobaya. Of course we're fighting. He nodded curtly. We're char. As the others broke into wide grins, Kobaya started giving orders. Grist, get Asum below decks and find him a berth. Then get back up here and help Fasher and the others. Yes, sir. A sharp grin creased old Grist's muzzle. Get us close enough, and we'll tear that blood-covered ship apart with our bare claws. Shaking his head, Kobaya contradicted the gray-manned elder char. Don't be so sure. Orion whites fight better than sailors, I assure you, and they're far less afraid of guns and swords. We can't fight them one-on-one and hope to survive. We need to get to work and— You can give all the orders you want, pirate, Moran interjected. There's more of us than you, and without your ship firing on us, my sailors can sure as Grenth's frozen underworld overcome you lot. If I give the command to turn this ship, we're turning. You gave your word. Kobaya's tone was sharp. Silence fell between the two, and you could have heard a pin drop on the deck of the Salma's Grace. Moran looked as if he were being forced to eat glass. Balthazar, break your bones, you wretched thing. Setting his shoulders stubbornly, the Cretan captain asked, Do you really think we can do this? Kobaya swallowed the lump in his throat and answered boldly, I know we can. Fine, Nicola, Moran roared, glancing across the deck toward a female sailor whose formal military coat had the epaulets of a first mate. Hesitant to approach the char, she nevertheless stepped forward and saluted. Ready the ship for another assault. Turn her broadside to that red-sailed scum. Under his breath, Moran grumbled, If that Orion ship sinks us, at least we're saved the indignity of explaining to King Bade that we were boarded by pirates. Kobaya grinned. Nicola, help them take that injured beast down to the hold and get him bandaged. Show the Dark One where the guns are, and bring out as much extra ammunition as we have left aboard. Get ready to shoot the ballast out of the cannon, if we have to, but keep those guns loaded. Yes, sir, she said. Fasher, Grist, and Isum followed her down through the open hatch. Henst put away his swords to help Captain Moran call together the human crew from both the Pride and the Salma's Grace alike, and set them to task. Sikox clapped him on the shoulder. As the others scattered to their duties, he paused. Reminds me of the time we rammed the Descend-Medil, the engineer said fondly. 1 minute we're 2 crews fighting, and the next we're one big, dysfunctional family all looking to you to keep us alive. I don't know if I can do it this time, Sikox, Kobaya said softly. But you said. The char's smile waned. I get it. You're slipperier than a greased growl, Kobe. Must be how you did so well at acclaimed. He nodded, placing one big paw on Kobaya's shoulder. Simon, Kobe, who raided the Exunlai warehouses near Lake Bounty, who bluffed our way out of the splintered coast with 3 broken bottles and a handful of flash powder. Sikox crossed his arms and flicked his ears back. Whose idea was it to sail right into the middle of a crate, deeps just to rescue a cook? In my defense, his chicken pie was amazing. You, the engineer said, you've turned crazy, reckless courage into a career. You've got a gift, Kobaya. A gift for bringing people together even against their better judgment. If anyone can defeat a dead ship, it's you. Even if we die, I'm proud to have had you as my captain. And as my friend. Sikox shrugged nonchalantly, making the leopard spots ripple in his tawny fur. Same here, Fuzzface. Touched, Kobaya thumped Sikok's shoulder. Keep the bilges going, he said. If we sink before they blow us to the heavens, I'm blaming you. Aye, sir. Sikok winked. Off I go to see what's beneath Salma's skirts. With that, he ambled toward the hatch, sliding rapidly down the ladder toward the galleon's lower decks. From a distance, the boom of cannon fire thundered in the air. Kobaya's skin crawled, and he looked instinctively toward the Pride. Smoke rose from the pinnace's guns as she fired on the Orion vessel with reckless abandon. Isay and the others were fighting for their lives, and he was stuck here, without any way to help them. Magical fire swelled from the Orion vessel like a twisting serpent of flame. As cannonballs passed through it, they melted into liquid, falling harmlessly into the sea. The shimmering inferno flickered and swayed, flowing in protective circles around the Orion ship. Kobaya thought he heard a chanting aboard the Pride. The wind rose, swirling through white foam and whipping the waves into a frenzy. The rush of air approached the Harbinger, tamping down the flame, pressing the Orion fire closer and closer to the ocean in an attempt to quench it with the waves. Fine work, your elementalist. Moran had recovered his mace from below, holding it tightly in one hand. You might have noticed, we've no offensive magic aboard the Grace. All we've got here is me. It'll be enough, Kobaya assured him. Moran gave orders to the crew in gruff tones, and slowly, the Salma's Grace began to turn. Kobaya leaned on the ship's gunwale, staring at the combat unfolding on the sea. Captain Mariner. Startled, Kobaya looked over the gunwale and saw Fashur's dark head peering out from a hole between the boards of the ship. Her hull's compromised, but it's all above water. As long as she doesn't hit roughs, the ribs'll hold. But that's not the problem. What then? Some jackass got a lucky shot during the Pride's volley. Landed straight in the main hold. The twice-blasted thing set fire to the dry stores and nearly lit up the ammunition. Sikok turned the bilges on the armory, so it wouldn't blow us all to the mists. But now the gunpowder's swimming in brine. Sighing, Kobaya rubbed his temples, trying to think clearly. Can we fire the guns? Aye, some. Whatever's out there already is the last of the powder. 2, maybe 3 shots each? The rest won't be dry for hours. Great, Kobaya groused. So what can we do? Fasher grinned up at him, hopefully. Board them and fight one-on-one? See? Grist wheezed enthusiastically somewhere inside the lower hold. That's what I told him. Kobaya slapped his hands to the sides of his head. Who taught you guys this stuff? As one, the Char answered. You did. Kobaya groaned and raised his palms to his forehead. Another voice rang out across the deck. You're going aboard that dead ship? Raising his head from his hands, Kobaya saw the 2 Norns standing behind him, listening to the argument between him and the Char. Their wide grins were a matched pair. I like your gumption, pirate, Braun said, leaning on his broadsword. Behind his brother, Grim tugged his hard leather sap gloves tighter around his knuckles. Looks like we've got some real fighting to do, eh, brother? Grim beamed. About time, Braun agreed. I was starting to get bored with the warm-up. Goddess Duena, forgive whatever I did to deserve this. Kobaya gazed up at the heavens in exasperation. With a sigh, he lowered his eyes and surveyed the sea before them. The Salma's Grace was barely moving, sailors shifting her sails to try to catch the wind once more. Over the waves, he could hear Isay giving orders, the Pride working valiantly to obey, as it engaged the red-sailed Harbinger. Longing struck him, and fear. That was his ship fighting out there. Without him. Just keep her alive, Kobaya whispered, looking down once more. Fasher, whose ears were far better than any human's, peeped out through the hole below. You mean the Pride? Yeah, Kobaya replied, turning away from the rail. The Pride. The Salma's Grace rode low in the water, a wallowing Dalyak when compared to the nimble Pride. The rocky lumps of island surrounding them proved a blessing, for the Salma's Grace would never have caught the other two ships had they been on the open sea. Even with the rocks hemming them in, she had a hard time keeping up with the lighter, more mobile crafts. The Orion Exebec was nimbler than the Pride, easier to turn, but the pinnace's engine made her faster in the straightaway. Each time the Harbinger tried to close in for an attack, the smaller ship warded her away with volleys of booming cannon fire. Over and over, the two vessels swooped and passed one another like bristling fighting fish. Guns roared, and wind and flame struggled over the water, a testament to the magic at work on either side. At one point, the Harbinger expended a full broadside, only to have it blown into empty waters a few yards from the Pride's bow, and Kobaya saw Virid's willowy form hovering above the pinnace's deck with a pleased little smile. Despite Virid's efforts, the Harbinger's fiery shield maintained a near-constant protection around the Exebec. Virid tried to use the wind to dispel it in pieces, pushing it aside so volleys from the Pride, or the Salma's Grace could make it through to their enemy on the far side of the flame. Cannonballs tore through the Orion ship's red sails and impacted the Exebec's deck with explosive force, but in return the Harbinger's guns did significant damage of their own, roaring easily out of their fire shield and impacting on the smaller ship with massive concussion. The booming of cannon fire from both ships shook the tall stones throughout the narrow island straits. "Captain!" the female first mate, Nicola, shouted as she reloaded one of the deck guns. "We're reaching the last of our powder," Moran yelled back. "Ready the guns and hold your fire." The old captain grimly set his jaw and clenched a hand around his heavy mace. "To Kobaya," he said, "our guns are twice as powerful as those on the Pride. That's why you pirates chose to board us. If we can just get one solid hit on that red-sailed blighter's hull." Watching avidly, Captain Moran waited for the Pride to swoop past, cutting off the Harbinger's wind so the Orion ship would be an easy target. Instead, the faster Harbinger turned her scarlet sails to port, staying between the Salma's Grace and her companion. Moran cursed. "Clever bastards. They've seen what your elementalist can do, and they don't like it. We need Virid's gale to get through that flame shield, but so long as we're on the opposite side of the Harbinger, the wind's always pushing us away and stopping our shot from getting anywhere near that dead ship," Fasher added, helping Nikolai load a heavy cannonball into the muzzle of the gun. Virid's wind flared again, pushing down the flames on the far side of the Harbinger. Waving his arms broadly above his head, Kobaya managed to catch the elementalist's attention. Frowning and pushing his reddish hair behind his ears, Virid released the spell, and the Orion flames roared back to life again. Kobaya could see him speaking to Isai, pointing curiously across the waves at the Salma's Grace. "All right. The Pride can't bring that shield down for us, so we'll have to do it ourselves." No longer pushed away by the gale, the Salma's Grace's punctured sail swelled, and the galleon began to gain speed. Kobaya leaned over the side once more, shouting below decks, "Engineer Sickox. Sir, I need you to turn on every bilge pump we have. Work them as hard as you can down there. I want 'em pumping full bore." "But, Cap'n, the deck's near dry down here," Sickox said. "Then put the ends into the sea." Before the Shar could ask any other questions, Kobaya yelled, "Just do it!" Sickox relayed the order to the crew in the ship's hold. Long rubber hoses slid out the holes in the deck, sinking into the ocean at the ship's side. Within minutes, the sound of chugging water redoubled itself as more sailors grabbed the pumps and labored to move the levers that worked the bilge. Seawater flowed up from the ocean, through the hoses, and out the other end back into the sea. "Water's flowing, sir," the tawny Char assured him confusedly. "I don't know what your plan is, but I don't think we're going to drain the sea out from under them. We won't have to. Kobaya waved to Nicola and Fasher and pointed toward the Harbinger. Ready the cannons and send a team of sailors down to hold the bilge hoses. We're going to need them. They quickly did as they were told, and soon the crew on the guns were awaiting the order to fire. Leaning on the gunwale, Kobaya waited with bated breath until the Salma's Grace was within 40 yards of her enemy. 30, 20. He could feel the heat of the Harbinger's flame shield scorching the galleon's hull. Now, Sickox, point the bilges to our starboard side and spray for your lives. Up went the hoses, and the pounding bilge pumps shot massive arcs of water toward the Harbinger. The shower struck the fire shield, hissing and steaming as the flame was doused. "Give 'em hell!" Kobaya commanded. The galleon's cannons thundered a full broadside, pounding out their ammo so violently that the great ship shuddered with animosity. Kobaya saw more than half of their shot make it through the superheated steam, crashing heavily into the Harbinger. At this close range, and without a magical shield to protect them, the Orion vessel was brutally damaged. The crew of the Salma's Grace let out a great cheer as they saw the red-sailed clipper twist and shudder. The Harbinger's protective flame shriveled away, and on the far side of the Orion ship, the Pride unleashed another blast of cannon intended to seal their enemy's fate. Their assault crashed through the Exebek's hull, magnifying the damage done by the Salma's Grace, and a great flood of water rushed into the Harbinger's shattering hulk. The volley had gone through the ship's boards and destroyed the mast step. The foremast tipped forward with a mighty crack of timber. As it fell, the keel of the Exebek splintered beneath the twisting weight, and the ship's deck split open like rotten fruit. "We did it," Captain Moran said disbelievingly. "We sank them. It's over." Cheers rose from the sailors aboard both living vessels. Kobaya stared grimly, saying nothing as the Harbinger's red sails stained the water like pools of blood. While the others celebrated, he watched a shadow spread beneath the dead ship's decayed and shattered husk, moving toward the other vessels with malicious purpose. "We may have sunk them," Kobaya said, staring intently at the waves. "But it's not over." Raising his voice, he yelled loudly enough to be heard even aboard the Pride. "The undead are moving under the waves. Make sail before they board us."